Alright. Welcome. This is Orlock 425. Of course, I'm gonna get my thing up and running and starting because this is gonna be kind of fantastic. This is another live discussion review, so those of you who haven't watched my stuff will probably be new to this. The game I'm gonna be probably playing right now, as you're seeing, is Killing Floor 2 because the new slideshow has just emerged, and since this is like a most likely a review about creatures like similar to the horror section where you have all these scary monsters, werewolves, and things that are more like into the horror of creatures. Since 4th of July is coming, I as well just played this one while I'm doing the review, and I already adjusted the audio so it won't be so loud, so that way you guys have a chance to actually see something while I be talking about the review, which is of course Demon Slayer, the one from the TV show, and the recent one, the movie that from the train that came out in the theaters. So if you haven't seen that one or this TV show, I recommend you take a look at those because this review might have spoilers, so be on the lookout for that. But I'm gonna give my feedback and my opinions of how the series went through and how it turned out to be. Alright, so so for the review of this Demon Slayer from season 1 to the movie, they were both, let me tell you right now, from my personal opinion, they're really amazing. They actually did a pretty good job to actually make you feel like you're welcome to the entire genre, what the story was about. So the name of Tanjiro, that's was in the main characters, and of course he was basically with his family in the beginning, doing normal stuff. They were, but the situation, how the story is about, is this character is in a society where he's dealing with a lot of, like, how you say this, he's dealing with trying to not get killed, or trying, and mostly in survival, trying to make sure that he keeps his family unrecognized and not staying too out long, because there is basically these demon cores that are really like bad and like ready to like take out all these like these innocent civilians. So they only come out at night, since the daytime they do die, so they have more chances of being out more in the day than the night. So as I recall, that the demons, of course, are the responsible for many innocent killings, and what leads to them doing this, like, own, like, how you say this, leads to them like trying to since they're own with their own problems, they have to like try to survive and not get killed. At the same time, they want to recuperate in money sources and things that are more like issues that need to be solved, because they're running out of money and they always have to sell to order to get money. So they're basically sellers. They make off of selling for the living. So one day, out of existence, after he takes care of selling his stuff, since he needs money to order to survive, basically the situation is something bad happened that led to him realizing his family got murdered. And what happened when his family got murdered, he realized something wasn't right, because before he was warned by civilians to not be out so late, but I guess there was something strong and powerful that even though they were hiding, they were still end up being watched and seen. So what happened, and he find out they were murdered, there was nothing he could really do about the situation. He was left there hopeless. So during the time he was left hopeless, he basically had really troubled times where he just didn't know what he's doing. But the only thing he had from left of his family was his sister Netsuko, which she did her best to save the poor child that she had, since she was the only one left. But unfortunately, even she got bitten badly. And what happened when the situation where she was left like vulnerable to the demon blood, it infected her so bad that she ended up turning into one. But he didn't know that. Tanjiro didn't know that. So what happened? What he did? He actually tried to did his best to take her to a doctor to see if she can get helped. But it was already too late. The moment demon blood gets infected to your body, you'd end up becoming one and transforming into a creature, half human, half creature. So that's what ended up happening to Netsuko. And at first she was trying to kill him, but unfortunately, since it wasn't fully like immersed into her, it was just like through little ponds that go streaming and slowly going to your body. She was able to control it for as a miracle, and I was completely shocked when I saw that she didn't have like experience of killing humans. So of course, as a demon slayer approached, because of course there's demon slayers that go after demons like that things that happen. The demon slayer end up coming out of nowhere and saving the main character Tanjiro, but unfortunately Tanjiro was trying to convince him that Netsuko did not have killing intentions, that instead he wanted was to get help and a cure for find a person who can get a cure for her sister. And unfortunately, the way he had to prove it was for her to be released. So he did some attempt doing that, and that's how she got released and ended up protecting him. And he was shocked that he never seen a creature like a demon that half demon half human actually try to save this person. So he was convinced not to kill her and let him to find somebody to be a part of the Demon Slayer Corps, since he wanted to avenge his family that got brutally murdered. And then it went off from there to just continue on making sure that through the times of his training, since he met this great opportunist, name called Skanju, something like that. I'm gonna call him the old teacher. He encountered him when he was facing off another demon out of their fighting encounters, since the path that they were going was very dangerous. And by now we really know that they were not safe. Thanks to, I guess, thanks to Netsuko, she was able to help him attack the demon before he can try to harm his brother, hurt his brother from getting brutally killed by him, as they saw. And basically he showed up and showed him a guide to saying that what you should do, and from here on out, to ensure that you can avenge your family, at the same time help yourself to become as the core, as one of the elites. So as he prepared himself through his training, he went through all these episodes of doing his best to become stronger and stronger just for his sister, and trying to do everything he can to keep her safe, that no matter what happens, he will always find a way to avenge her and do the whole situation where he's gonna make himself more stronger than ever. And that's what ended up happening. So when he got strong enough, he had one more goal he had to do in order to participate into the fairs that he wanted him to guide himself in. When that fair was basically, are you strong enough to cut down this bulldozer, which basically he had struggles at first, but during time he started seeing like these unknown like presence of these characters just supporting him. He didn't know there were ghosts, so he had no idea there were ghosts. They're just there supporting him through the way to try to help him cut the bulldozer. So in this time of doing his best through every episode, he ends up cutting that thing and realized it was easy and simple, and that all he needed to do was believe and embrace himself. And that's what led him to actually participate into the final ceremony of becoming a demon slayer. So as he goes to this place where they lower him to a segment where he's forced to face off demons, he finds himself struggling at first to figure out what is going on, and knowing that there's so many of individuals getting killed, he ends up like basically forced to make hard decisions. And even though he tries to save his so-called unknown civilians in there that are also trying to fight these demon things. He ends up facing across a monstrosity similar to the thing of a looking creature that's completely covered, like all this like situation. He's completely covered in this muted dead body, similar, like it's really disgusting. So he ends up doing that and facing off, and of course he finds a way to overcome the hardness and finds a weak point to end up taking this creature down that killed those ones that he encountered, and then realized that they were ghosts, and it shows them actually that they were ghosts, and that mutated killed them. So he did his best to actually kill that creature and avenge them their deaths. So that was his accomplishment he made. Though he tried to capture demons to find an answer if there's any cures, but he found no opinions or how you say this, no mercenary of what type of creatures able to help his cause. So he was basically in hopeless mode. He had he had no choice but to just wait it out for his departure. So he had no choice but to wait. I'm trying to put the health back together. So once he was able to come across his pass of the ceremony, he ends up realizing that there's more to it as a demon slayer than he ever thought there was. So he basically didn't realize that there's more to it. So as he was going through missions and missions as a demon slayer, since he was promoted as one, what happened was there was a lot of encounters with powerful demons, especially the encounter with the one that lead him to this one person that, since he had like a scent, since he had a good scenting ability, he's able to track down one demon that led to him fighting the one that's creating all these crazy like encounters. I don't know what the demon boss thing is, but this person was very powerful, and he was able to find that person so easily. The only problem is he couldn't fight that individual, and because they're not just because he would put others in danger, but harm to the innocent that he had held up his hand. So there's no choice but to let him go. But unfortunately, you put a bounty on him that he had no choice but to continue on to fight against these so-called creatures. So he had basically gave no choice but to take on these creatures and do it as fast as possible without any delayed or dilemma or anything like that. So in other words, he had no choice but to make it as fast as possible to take down each demon he came across upon. Though there was two individuals that had the same as Nexiku, the problem was that the creatures that they encounter were different, and they did have DNA of them. The only problem that made them different between Nexiku and them, that they were able to talk, while Nexiku wasn't able to. But they still were able to track down most of the creatures, and though there were the bounties that they came across upon end up tracking him down, the problem was they weren't strong enough to defeat them, since both Nexiku and Tashiru were fighters to take they're like finding demons to take down. They end up losing off of that, because even though they were powerful and had abilities, they had the strength of both of them had encouragements to keep on fighting no matter what. So they had no choice but to end up not resisting, but able to realize that this is something they're not able to fight down, like not able to take down alone. So they had no choice but to give it in, and that's how they end up losing to that. But out of those outcomes of both the encounters of those demons, Tashu find himself feeling like not sad for the civilians that lost their loved ones, but feeling like he had like sympathy that he been through the same thing that they were, where he lost somebody, because he lost an entire family and he had to go through that pain, and that the only step forward for both them were just to continue pressing on no matter what the cause was. That if you want to avenge them, you could actually become like him if that's what you want. So he gave, in other words, he giving him a choice, and that choice is up to him. But it doesn't show really that much. But he ends up showing them the same thing that happened to him. So through those causes, he still was able to still see that. Not to mention that even though he had similar problems, he still managed to fight it. He still managed to overcome it. Then there was a situation where he was facing off the most hardest, like brutal demons that were stronger than his even his sister. But how he able to fight them off was not just encouragement, but he bought a lot of time for the elite demon slayers to show up and help him take his cause, because they do show a backstory of them, which is really sad. It is how they became creatures and how they were dealing with life, and led to them, murdering innocent civilians. So through that, he had to put them out to like get rid of their sins that they done, and put them at rest, since they did a lot of brutal tactics to a lot of these individuals, which it still was kind of sad to actually witness. But he understand what they were going through, and he gave them no choice but to do that. So that's the reason why he did what he did. Though the demon slayers, the elite, didn't feel sympathy for them, they still managed to show at least a gratitude that they're still human inside them no matter what, and that he did everything he can to help them out no matter what. And that's what led him to still fight on and do his thing that he usually did. And oh my god, this thing's getting brutal. So basically he ended up having his way to help them, in other words, through his demise. I have to take these creatures down. I'm gonna try to run this out. So at the end of the near the end of the episode, the demon slayers, the elite ones, end up finding out that Netsuko was a demon, that he worked alongside with them. So they had to go back to their headquarters, since they didn't realize that she was a demon, to prove if she was not like harming innocent humans. So they went through this fighting drama experience through the reckoning of through each other's, and they end up realizing that she was good after all, and she wasn't bad like they thought they were. And through that encounter, he ended up getting his rest and training a little bit more, to get himself more focused on what his tasks and his methods are supposed to be as a demon slayer. And so it leads to the events where, after he receives his training and gets his whole recruitment going, where he's getting more stronger and stronger, they send him to a mission that leads to him going where the train is. And this is where the movie comes in. So as the movie side where it continues off his story, he ends up coming across, because before the film there was this elite called Imiduru, something like that. He was tagged along with these two, with Imidura, and of course the buddies of him that were assigned as with him as well, the name of Tashiba and the other guy Netsu. Hopefully, if you can tell me in the comments or in the chat if I'm pronouncing them right, or you can probably help me out with that. They both tag along with him to deal with the disappearance of innocent people in the train. And when they end up finding out, when they're come across the train, they end up finding that this train was alive, because during the time of course the main demon boss, which slaughtered every single individual demon that were too weak for the cause, that did not do a good job and were really extremely bad. He ends up destroying each and every of those of those demons, except for that one individual, and the boss gave that single demon his blood in order to fulfill the destiny of continuing with the train. So through that, use as his way as advantage to try to get himself a little bit stronger. Unfortunately, he wasn't strong enough to get through there, but I'll get to right to that part of reason why he wasn't strong. So during the train event, he came to with his buddies tagging along with this guy, with this great elite person, the name of Shiro, which he had the ability of using fire. He used basically him and that used way of like teaming up to find out what was the cause of these disappearance of these individuals. So what ended up happening was both individuals were like discovering that this train wasn't all normal, because at first they thought they were just facing demons, but then they ended up falling asleep where they were trapped in the dream state where they couldn't understand what was going on. So they had no choice but to find out how to get out of this dream, how to surpass the situation, and wake up to find out who's responsible for causing this. So what they end up doing in the result of it is they end up coming out from their brilliant tactics in schemes to get out of their dream state and into reality of facing off their greatest opponent, which first they thought it was just one single demon, but apparently it wasn't. It was like basically the whole train themselves that they were facing off. So during that time, they had some really struggles and really like encounters where they're fighting against not just one, but the entire train itself. That was like disgusting looking. Like if you were to see this train, if what a train will look like if being alive, it will be more like an organ filled with every single bits of gushiness all over the damn place. So that's what it looked like. It was really disgusting. But during that encounter that they were doing, they're trying to save every civilian they can as much as possible to take down this individual, because during his training he realized that with all the stuff that happened during season 1, he was able to surpass and overcome what he needed to do in order to fulfill his role and destiny. And even though he had his brilliant tactics and the brilliant schemes, there were still problems where he was still facing and still issues that he still had, because he only could save a couple of cards, but he couldn't save every single individual. But thanks to his sister Netsuko and of course the elite slayer that woke up instantaneously, they were able to surpass them and surpass their dream state and help them out with the situation that's going on in hand. And that's what led him to get rid of their sleepiness and save as much as possible for these creatures as everything they can. So they were in the battle between them near the end, where they had, well, not near the end, but near the end of the conflict, where they were going through the main train, because every demon has a sort of like, how you say this, has some sort of head that they can cut off. So when I found out that there was basically a head in the front of the train that led to this massive gruesome fight where demon was trying his best. This demon of Emir was trying his best to fight Tashiru and his friend Hashibara, which both of them were at it, just trying to take down and tear down this defense to cut the head off. And eventually, from no matter how many times he tried putting him asleep, Tashiro always snapped out of every single existence, and he couldn't put, of course, Tashipu to sleep because he had the pig head, of course. But when the situation came of him actually defeating this thing, it was insane how a massive explosion, the whole thing just collapsing and going at it just instantaneously, going like one of those like Call of Duty episodes where everything's like crashing down and flying in the air, and all these carts are like tumbling all over each other. It was like insane. It was. So during that experience, he starts to realize that he's lost. These guys were stronger than he thought it was, and his whole plan came to a fail. He soon realizes that when he sees himself on the ground, realize everything in his plan was all wrecked because of that. Since he had a scent and he knew where exactly to aim, and the help of the elite demon slayers, there's no chance he had to defeat them. Even though he had the blood, he wasn't strong enough to find a way to defeat of course the main characters. And so even though they did the task and he ended up seeing his sorry failures, another character named of I call him Askela, he was a first elite demon that came out of existence just to see his encounter, to find out, because of course they were tracking, I don't know, somewhere in the film he was tracking them down, and he actually cashed up to almost kill the main character Tashiro. But of course the character Shanjiro ended up saving his life from his attackness, and through that brutal a counter, he ended up fighting against, because they had a showdown to see who's tough enough to take down their opponents. So when the events came through of him trying to see what just happened and what was led to his eyes, he ended up seeing that this was not just a regular demon. This was an actual tough demon, and that this was not going to be an easy encounter that he thought it was going to be facing off. That this was going to be a head-on, all fight-on, how you say this? A fight-on, brutal showdown where he has no choice but to face on and take down this massive, powerful demon. But it wasn't powerful enough, because he still ended up getting near upper hand. I don't want to spoil too much, but he had some way to almost killing this thing. The only problem was, since he was already like at his weak point, and since he was able to regenerate through his attacks, he ended up taking down most of it. He ended up taking down the lead demon slayer, and he had no choice but to give it in that he was been defeated. And that even though Tashiro tried to take him down too as well, they're already too late. So by the end of the film, it was kind of sad to see this poor the elite demon slayer to get killed like that. But he was able to show remorse that they did save a lot of innocent humans from the train reckoning, and that the rest of the news spread out to the rest of the elite demons, that to carry on the legacy and to continue on the fight, that no matter what, that they have to fill the master's role into ensuring that the peace will continue happening and all these demons will start getting killed one by one. And that will lend to both of them feeling sad that they lost one of their best comrades. But unfortunately, at the end of the film, even though it had that ending of sadness, they could have done better, I think, if they had someone they actually knew. But since they wanted to do this method way, I guess it makes sense. But as of right now, from the review point of I've seen from every individual character who did their best, including the ones that were the teachers and stuff, my point of ratings, I gotta give them already. For my final ratings of both season 1 and the movie, I give them a solid, both of them. For the season 1, I give 8 out of 10, and for the movie, a 7 out of 10. Although the season 1 made sense and had these characters come through from the beginning to the end and showing how they developed to become actual demon slayer, it still made a satisfying experience, that no matter what they did or no matter how much remorse they felt, they were still able to overcome and surpass the conflict that was at hand, and they end up getting themselves much stronger than needed to be done. So by the end of the film, they by the end of the TV show, they were still able to to become strong opponent to face off that leads to the film, which my rating was a 7 out of 10, that one. Which the film, it did have cool action, it did have good empathy for these characters. They still could have done a more emotional way of making a satisfying result, because even though none of us audience felt too much for this character, they could have showed it in the season one, that could have showed more personality between these trade rates. So I still think that they could have done both. That's why we all gave it a 7 out of 10, because they still had ways to make that personality open if they just showed more to that character than just this one glimpse, like cameo or whatever you call it, in season one where he's barely shown. But if you haven't seen the TV show or movie, I still recommend to see it, because it's still really good and it still makes optical sense to actually enjoy this film and actually remorse on it. If you're like into this bloody stuff, then yes, I still believe that you still will be enjoyable, satisfied with it actually. So those are my ratings for TV show: 8 out of 10, movie 7 out of 10. If you think the discussion I have is really good, please leave a like. If you still think that I can make me work on something or explain something a little better, because I'm still giving my personal reviews of what it basically I'm talking about here. It's not really my strongest, but I still give as much satisfying result to continue making as much as possible to explain the reviews of both. But they are a must watch if you like into, you know, films with monsters in it, things like that, including ReZero, because it's like similar to ReZero. Please watch both of them, because they really are like the weakling, or these like beings that are up against these massive powerful like beings that have like abilities that you cannot comprehend, that anybody couldn't comprehend. So I still give it my ratings for the Demon Slayer as well, for that to happen. So those are my personal review that I thought about the film. That both were satisfying enough to convince me to rewatch them, and hopefully to see what comes next for the future of course this TV show, since they're making a season 2 out of it, and I can't wait for it to come out. So that's about it. I hope you guys like this, and I'll see you on another talking discussion from Orlock 425. That's about it, and signing out.